Welcome back to the Suncoast Magazine. Great pleasure right now. I've been looking forward to talking to this man for quite a while. He'll be coming to town on the 27th over at the Van Wezel doing his very famous Mark Twain Tonight Show. We're talking to the great Hal Holbrook by telephone. How are you, Hal?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Finally got to Florida. I got out of some of the cold weather.
I know you were traveling around the state doing the show at Clearwater, and were you up in Jacksonville today, right?
Yep. I was in Kearney, Nebraska not long ago. That's cold enough.
You got to get an agent where you just booked in the South in the winter.
Yeah, well, I try to do that, but we've been working together for 44 years, so he knows I'll go anywhere.
That's right. Well, I have to say, I saw your commercial the other day for Fisher Investments was on down here.
Yeah, well, it's one of the first I've done.
I was going to say you haven't done too many commercials, at least on the. I know you've done some voiceovers, but on the air commercials, you haven't done that many, right?
Yeah, this is the first one I've done like that. But I figured I don't particularly like to do commercials, but this is for making money, so I figured everybody's in agreement on that.
That's
one.
right.
Nobody can sneeze at trying to make a few dollars.
That's right. Yeah, it pays the rent. Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with commercials. It's a good gig. Well, you're going to be bringing the Mark Twain Tonight program to Van Wezel. I know you've been here before, but it's been a few years, right?
The last time I was in Sarasota was '02, April 5th, '02. I'm looking at the notes right here. I make notes before I go to bed after a show. That's why I don't get to bed till 4 in the morning. I have to go eat once we get out of the theater at midnight. And because we do one-nighters, we have to pack the show up, so we don't get out till midnight.
Right.
So before I go to bed, I do a full report on the show. So I was just looking at what I did. I look at what I did the last time and program some different material for the show I'm going to do, currently.
You change that program each night. It's
change it all the time.
That's great. Well, it keeps it fresh that way.
Well, that's one way to keep it fresh for me, and of course then it helps in return engagements. But yeah, it's really, if I was doing this, I mean, I've done this show. How many years am I doing this now? What is this? This is 53 years or something like that. This is 1954 I started. And if I was doing the same show over and over again, I mean, I couldn't, I don't see how anybody could really keep it fresh. But the combination of being able to switch around whenever you want to right in the middle of the show, which I do very often, reprogram while I'm going along, plus the fact that his material seems, because I don't update it or anything, but it seems to be talking sometimes at certain kinds of material. It seems to be talking about what's going on right now.
Oh, sure.
Every idiocy you can think of is going on, from politics to everything else right now. And it's a way of working off my frustration. We all get frustrated looking at the way of the world, the crazy things that are going on, the decisions that are made, etc., and da-da-da. And this is just a way of getting rid of some of the irritation and frustration that you feel when you get to be older and you look at the way things are going and you wonder what's going on with people's heads.
He really talked about issues not only of the time, but like you said, of today. Racism was a huge issue of Mark Twain's books. You talk about Huckleberry Finn. That's all based on race, isn't it?
It was a huge issue, of course, because Huckleberry Finn was written. Well, he started writing it in 1876 and quit for about 5 years and finished it in, I think, 81 or 2 or something like that. So, that's only, 10, 15 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, maybe 16, 17. And he married into Mark Twain married into a family. His wife's father was one of the leading abolitionists in the state of New York. Elmira, where they lived, was one of the major underground railway stops, if you'll remember.
Right.
And you can imagine the conversation that took place at the dinner table. I mean, Frederick Douglass, the great black leader in those days, was friend of Twain's. As a matter of fact, Twain introduced him when he spoke at Carnegie Hall. So Twain, who came was raised in a slave culture where he played with slave children and had a tremendous affection for this old black slave that used to tell him stories every night when they went to visit his uncle's farm in the summer. I mean, he really listened. I mean, something about his brain. He took in all this culture, this way of talking, and everything. So he really knew what he was talking about. And yes, racism was a big issue then. It's an issue now. And people try not to talk about it too much as if it doesn't exist. But it does exist. It always does. We always have to be conscious of it and not to talk about it, I think, counterproductive. I think that political correctness has a very negative side to it because it prevents people from speaking about their feelings openly. And it's only when we talk about our feelings openly, which you can get from, when I do Huckleberry Finn or talk about racism afterwards or the way people think. It's only when you talk about it openly that some kind of movement takes place, that people close up all the time and hide their feelings. I mean, where does that get you? Nowhere, not in my opinion.
He would have been an outstanding political commentator if he was alive today, don't you think, on television?
Well, he would have been, yeah. He would. He would be, I don't know whether any network would hire him because he would be pretty rough. I mean, the guy that says, I can accept the fact that common sense is out of place in Washington, but sometimes it does seem to me that Washington is a stud farm for every jackass in the country. It'd be pretty, I mean...
I'd tune in to watch. We're talking with Hal Holbrook. We're bringing his Mark Twain Tonight program to the Van Wezel on the 27th. And I just got to ask you, you kind of started the show, like you said, as a college project, and then Ed Sullivan put you on his program. That kind of made it take off, didn't it?
Yeah, I was working in a nightclub. I was doing it in the curve of a baby grand piano with a cigar and an ashtray, and someone talked Ed Sullivan to come down and see it. He really did that. That's something. Ed Sullivan, had that column, but he really went around and looked at acts in little places too, not big clubs, little ones. This was a little club down the village, and Ed really did that, and he gave me a really good shot. I mean, he was very, very helpful to me, and it was one of those steps forward that was a great help to me. I mean, what's his name put me on the Tonight Show about 2 weeks later. I forget people's name, but that wonderful man that originally did the Tonight Show.
Steve Allen.
Steve Allen. Yeah. He's very intelligent. He was so nice. He was so thoughtful in the way he presented me. He was great.
Well, you talk about the Sullivan Show. That was a show. I mean, live. There's no tape back then, and what you saw is what you got, and that must have been kind of interesting, I guess, doing like live theater at the same time as you're doing television.
Oh, it was live, all right. Well, I was doing a soap opera at the time. I did a soap opera live for 5 years. At the time that all happened, I was doing a soap opera in the daytime. Not every day, but I was on maybe an average of 2 or 3 times a week. And we were live, man. I did a soap opera from 1954 to 1959 until I opened in New York with Twain. And, much to everybody's total and utter amazement, most of all mine, the thing got these rave reviews. I mean, I was expecting to get murdered, and the New York critics went nutty over the thing. Nobody knew who was this guy. They didn't know who this... They never heard of me. Where did this kid come from? It's really... So, I mean, I did the show 8 times a week in the theater and kept doing the soap for another couple of months, and I just couldn't do it all anymore, so I quit the soap opera. If that was live, man.
Oh, yeah.
And, I've been writing a book for a couple of years now, and not a couple of months ago, I was writing about my first experience on live television. I was trying to find an image for it to explain to an actor today what being on live television was like. And the thing I finally think of, imagine you were a clown in the circus that was being shot out of the cannon. I don't know what kind of propulsion power they use in the circus, but on live television, it was fright.
Oh, yeah. I heard somebody describe it once, saying it was like summer stock and an iron lung. I don't know. Being on live television. But
yeah.
And Sullivan had a way, I've talked to other people that have been on it, they say he would come in at rehearsal, after rehearsal, and cut people's act by, you got to cut 2 minutes before we go on the air, and that was a little frightening.
Oh, it's horrible. And then they start that countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're praying very hard, even if you're not religious,
I miss those. I mean, I watched the tail end of it. I was, a little kid when it was still on, and I miss those kind of shows. Those were fun to watch.
Yeah, well,
TV changes, I guess. And I got to ask you this, though. Since Deep Throat has now been revealed, the actual person, do people come up to you now and still say, are you him, or what? From All the President's Men?
Yeah, well, privately, I think I would rather I never knew who it was, because which is, his family wanted to reveal it too, so, fine, but there was a mystery involved there that was very powerful. And the mystery revolved on the choice the man made to reveal something that he felt was so important to the country. It was a moral choice that he made, because when you serve the president, when you serve in the administration of a president, you do not break the code. You do not step outside. You defend the president. I mean, I know that from playing a senator on NBC
right
years ago, and I did a lot of research and spoke to a lot of senators and stuff like that. So that was an extraordinary choice the man made, and in the film, the backstory we had on him and the thoughts we did and the thinking we did about him, really revolved around a moral choice of somebody. I didn't know who it was, but I imagined the man would be somebody, let's say, who had served the administration, several administrations, both Republican and Democrat, and who finally came down to a choice between his loyalty to his country and his loyalty to his president.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that choice was important.
I think you're right. Poetically, it probably would have been better if we never really knew,
Yeah.
Would have been great.
Yeah.
Well, Hal, it's been fun to talk to you. I've been a big admirer of your work on television, movies, and on stage. And we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday here in Sarasota with the Mark Twain program.
Thank you very, very much.
We will talk to you again soon down the road. When that book comes out, Hal, I'd love to talk to you again.
Thanks. Oh, I'd like to. I've enjoyed our talk.
Great. Hal Holbrook, our guest. We'll be right back.